Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our final night of Stop Sabotaging Yourself. I am Simone Elbow, the Limitless Life Coach. So good to be back in your presence, and I thought I'd start a little differently. That great motivational video, and I hope that the message of that, I thought, really captured some of the things that we've been talking about all week long. And so here we are. Last night, we've got the last two success blockers to go over. And if you're joining us for the first time, I just want to go over what those success blockers are, starting with number one, the blame game. So we talked about how we spend time blaming others, blaming situations, blaming circumstances, our past, our present. We're finding ways that we just take the responsibility from ourselves. It's a way of giving our power away and feeling as if we don't have control over what happens to us. And of course, there are certain things that we don't have control over, but there are a lot of things that we do have control over. And so we can't use that as an excuse. The next thing that we talked about, number two, was procrastination and perfectionism. And so we talked about how we put things off, we delay, we are chronically late, we miss opportunities, we deliberately, sometimes unconsciously, most times unconsciously or consciously, are doing these things to stop ourselves from being successful. Whether we feel that we are overwhelmed or we just can't focus, whatever the reason is, we are putting it off. And when we put it off, we are not making progress. Number three, we talked about inconsistency. And this is our inability to commit to ourselves, our inability to invest in our own success. And number four, we talked about silence. And silence is when we do not speak up. We do not say what we have to say. We don't ask for what we want. We don't say what we need. We don't negotiate from a place of power. And so we have to speak up so that we don't sabotage our own success. And number five, last night we talked about excuses, the excuses that we come up with, and we talked about having two-itis, T-O-O-itis. Either I am too tired, I'm too busy, it's too hard, I'm too broke, it's too common, there's too much competition. Like whatever the excuse is, we say we cannot do this thing that we want to do. And underlying a lot of these, if not all of these, is some sort of fear. And so we have to start to dig deep into why we feel and think the way that we do. Number six, overthinking. And so we spend some time talking about that, where we spend time either in our past or worrying about the future. We're in anxiety or depression. We are in analysis paralysis, where we're just thinking so much. We're planning and preparing and researching, but we're never acting. We're never doing anything to advance where we need to go. And so that is as far as we have gotten so far. And tonight we are going to go over the last two success blockers. And I bet you all are wondering exactly what those are. But we are going to go over that right now. So just give me a minute to get this screen going, and we will be off. All right, here we are. So number 7, fight or flight. Fight or flight. And this is a psychological term that actually is used to describe our body's reaction to extreme fear or extreme stress, extreme anxiety. And it is an unconscious reaction that our body makes to protect itself. So it actually can be a good thing in some ways, an automatic response. It's like a reflex response. But I'm going to use this in a bit of a twist tonight. I'm not referring to it in that pure sense of the definition of what it actually is. I want to look at it from a different perspective on how we sabotage ourselves. Emotional extremes, fight or flight. When we get in emotional imbalance, we sabotage ourselves. And so we may get in fight mode. So you ever came across people who the slightest thing sets them off? Like they're so easily triggered, and they just fly off the handle. They're always upset about something, or they just want to pick a fight. And sometimes when we really dig into that, there are always underlying reasons. I always liken these things to the iceberg, and that expression that we call the tip of the iceberg, where what you see on the surface is not all that there is. The majority of the iceberg is under the surface of the water. And so many times, and this is why I try not to, and it's difficult sometimes not to be impacted by other people's emotional states, but I try as much as possible to be empathetic toward people that show these emotional extremes, because oftentimes it's just a symptom of what's going on underneath, and something is going on underneath. So you have people who may just pick fights, and people do it in relationships. There's a big joke that they will say, guys will tell each other, pick a fight with her around holiday time, or Valentine's, so you don't have to buy her a gift. You could break up and then make up afterwards. And you have some people who will pick a fight because deep down they feel like this probably isn't going to work, or I don't want to be exposed to this opportunity or whatever it is. So let me just create this smoke screen so that while you are distracted by the smoke screen, you're distracted by this emotional outburst and anger and all of this other stuff, you won't notice the fact that I'm actually terrified on the inside. And I don't want to be discovered. Other emotional extremes we have, of course, is when you get into that flight mode where you are so afraid that you just pull right in. You pull right in and you shut down. And that's how I used to be, like in a major way. If it was anything to do with a confrontation or speaking my mind, setting a boundary, saying how I feel, saying what I want, that's not going to happen. You're not going to get that from Simone. Simone is the one who is going to go with the flow. Simone is the one who is going to agree with you because I want no problems. You hear people say that, right? They'll say, well, I'm a peacekeeper. I keep the peace. I help to resolve conflicts, and I walk away first before I get into anything. These are extremes, because there's nothing wrong with being able to assert yourself when necessary, especially if your boundaries or your values, your self-respect, any of those things are being encroached upon. It is expected that you actually show up for yourself and speak up for yourself, and maybe even for others that may be dependent on you. They say don't mess with a parent and their child. Like, that's a whole different ballgame. You mess with my child, you mess with me. And so, but we have some people who are so good at protecting everybody else, and they suck at protecting themselves. And number 8, we're going to dig into that aspect a little bit more. But then we have that emotional extreme. And sometimes I discovered a long time ago that I started to observe comedians. That comedians make a joke out of everything. And you have some people in life who are like that, always cracking jokes, always the class clown, always the life of the party. And I always wonder about their emotional state. How happy are they really? You cracking jokes, but are you really happy? And it's something to really consider. And when we saw Robin Williams, for instance, commit suicide, and the whole world is shocked, like, what? The man that makes everybody laugh for a living commits suicide? And it just teaches us that not everything that's on the surface is what it is. You can even have that extreme of super happy, like nothing is ever going to touch me. And sometimes I'm concerned with people in the church or in religious settings where they call that faith, where they refuse to acknowledge anything negative. They refuse to, and I understand the concept. I understand the concept behind it. And I believe in faith. But I also believe in being real. And there's nothing wrong with expressing some forms of reality. And even if you follow those principles, biblical principles, if you look at the book of the Psalms, it's filled with people venting and talking about the things, the trials, the tribulations that they're going through, the pain that they were going through, betrayal, fear, shame, all of these things, they're totally pouring out from their heart, saying, hey, this is where I am. This is my current state. Remember what I said? I am here. This is where I am. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that. I mean, if we're true Bible scholars, God said, cast your cares on me. So how are you going to cast them if you're not going to be able to talk about them to him? It's not as if you're going around sharing and telling everybody, oh, woe is me, and I got all these problems or whatever. If you can't express those things, the challenge is moving from expressing those things, feeling your feelings, and then healing and moving on from them. I found a very interesting website, 6seconds.org. And they said that we only feel an emotion for 6 seconds. I was like, what? At first I was like, that doesn't make any type sense. 6 seconds? You have some people who are depressed for years, who are angry for years, who are frustrated and bitter for years. But when they talk about it, when you think about it, especially children, don't you notice children will feel an emotion and then like they're done? Like it never happened unless they're really in a traumatic or toxic environment where they are constantly bombarded by these emotional states. That's different. But on the average, in a given day, a child will experience a range of emotions and it does not stick. It does not last. It rolls right off. And so scientifically, it's proven that we only feel these emotions for 6 seconds. What we do, however, is we nurture the experience that created the emotion, and we keep ourselves in these emotional states because the actual emotional state has become the crutch. So it isn't that you're mad at me anymore. It's now being mad at me has become a comfort zone for you. It's easier for me to be mad at you than to deal with why I got mad in the first place, or having a difficult conversation, saying how I feel. No, I could just unfriend you. I could just block you. Right? Like, when I see people do that type of thing, like, unless they're harassing you, if you have a challenge with somebody, all this venting on social media and posting things and blocking and unfriending and all, no. Get mature and have the level of conversations that you need to have to address the real issues. That's what we need to do instead of staying in these emotional extremes. So what is the success strategy? Is balance. We need emotional balance. We need to build our emotional intelligence, our ability to be self-aware, to understand what it is that we're feeling, to be able to clearly identify it and express it, and to understand it. And that in and of itself is something to even dig into. When you do emotional intelligence quizzes, and I will share that resource with you, a quiz that you can do to test your emotional intelligence. But when I did mine, I found that I was very, very low in that area. And it was true because I had a challenge expressing myself. Remember, I talked about these tight shoulders and all of that stuff? I had a problem identifying. Like, I got to a point where I could identify what I was feeling and why, but I still had a challenge expressing what I was feeling. And I would just say, well, I'm shy about those things. I'm shy about speaking my mind. I'm shy about expressing emotion. I'm shy about asking for what I want. But it wasn't shyness. It's not shyness. It actually came from being in abusive relationships where there was extreme control and extreme, what we call gaslighting, where you're made to feel that what you think is not what you actually think and not what you actually see. Like, you end up actually feeling like you're crazy because that other person plays those mind games on you to say they diminish what you think and feel and make you feel like it never happened. And you know it happened. And then you start to question yourself. You start to doubt. And then it's like, well, there's too much going on in my head. I guess I'm just the crazy one. So that's really the root of where that came from for me. It's nothing to do with shyness. And so sometimes, even though we hide behind being an introvert and all those sorts of things, sometimes that is not our true nature. Sometimes circumstances and life and experiences push us into those types of states, but it may not be our natural state. I was chatting with someone this week and we were talking about that. We were talking about how as children, we can be so precocious. And she shared a photo of herself. You know, she had this little sassy pose. And I was telling her about photos that my sisters have of me being all sassy. And they would tell me these stories of how I was mouthy and I would tell anybody off, up until the point of abuse entering my life. And from that point on, it was almost as if I was just frozen. And that Simone, pre that experience, didn't exist anymore. But that's not true. That person still exists. Experience shifted that and created a different persona. So it's about uncovering the real you, the person that you were born and created to be, that person who you were from birth, that person who you were when you were untouched by life, that uninhibited child. You know what? It always amazed me when I would see little boys when they're growing up, right? They're such exhibitionists. They don't care Who sees them? They'll rip their little pampers off and they'll be running around and happy about it. Running around, they don't care. They have no hangups about their body. And little girls too. I mean, because they're children. They don't have all of the hangups that we have about self-image and body image. And oh my gosh, this isn't falling right here, and this ain't going right here, and this lump and this bump and these stretch marks and this cellulite and all of this other stuff. And by the time we finish packing that on, and my nose this size and my ears this size and my eyes look like this and my eyebrows and my hair, and by the time we finish mutilating ourselves, we're like a totally different person. So we have to be self-aware. And then in emotional intelligence, you also have to learn self-control, self-management. So even though you understand yourself, you also are able to manage yourself. So it doesn't mean that because I feel a certain thing in the moment that I have to act on it or I have to say something about it. That is what self-control is. Maybe I need to step back and process. Maybe I need to wait until my anger subsides. So after the 6 seconds, then maybe we can talk. Or maybe, you know what, I need after the 6 seconds, I need maybe 30 minutes to just kind of settle and understand and then come back. And when we set boundaries, that's what we do. We'll say, you know what, don't come at me right after I'm feeling this way. And I need to be mature enough to tell you, I really can't talk about this right now. And if it's okay with you, I would prefer that we come back to this. And this is not easy, especially when your emotions are involved, you know, and you have deep feelings for the person that you may be in this back and forward with, or the status of the person. A lot of people have these struggles at work, and where they have to deal with bosses and deal with other people of higher rank and all these different types of status structures and hierarchies that make interacting a bit more challenging. And then we have to be socially aware. That means we need to take in what other people feel. And this is when we get into people saying, well, this person is selfish, because it's all about them. It's all about how they feel. It's never about their other awareness is broken. And this is where we get empathy from. Empathy is your ability to understand someone else's perspective, someone else's feelings outside of yours, and understand where they're coming from, and to be able to put yourself in their shoes and understand how they feel. And then tied to your social awareness is relationship management. And so again, you will use that skill of the soft skill of empathy, and you would apply that to your relationships. And so you will know if I should say this right now. This person is raw about something right now. Maybe this isn't the time. Maybe this is not the right space or the right place. Timing and all of those things, and understanding and compassion for other people will temper how you interact with them. And of course, you know, we have these issues that we have going on inside that make these things sound very easy and sound very textbookish, but make it a bit challenging to actually execute. It takes a lot of work and a lot of discipline, and you're going to mess up sometimes, but we just have to keep trying. Remember, in our coaching moments, we have to reset. So it takes time. Sometimes we revert to our default settings, and we just have to process it, forgive ourselves, and move on, and keep practicing and keep trying. So for number 7, overcoming emotional extremes, we need to recognize and know what our emotional state is, what our triggers are, and how we respond in a given moment. We have to do that work, and understanding that not everything that we feel may be steeped in what actually is. the current reality. Sometimes we are triggered because there is an unhealed part of ourselves that's still causing a reaction in you. And so that's why sometimes you would interact with people and you don't understand why you may get the reaction that you're getting from them. It's like this reaction doesn't seem to be in line with either who they are or appropriate to the scenario at hand. A bit extreme. It's because they were triggered. Something in them that's still a wound that's not healed yet has been triggered. And it happens to you as well. So after we have acknowledged that, we need to reframe that pattern of overreacting or underreacting, because it isn't just about the extreme emotional outbursts. And that doesn't necessarily have to be just anger. Some people get into crying fits. And they're just crying and crying and crying and crying. You can't console them. You can't help them. And it's like, what's happening? I don't understand. I don't even know how to help you right now. And then you have some people that remember the flight part of this, where they just shut down or they freeze. And so for some of these things, it may not even be coaching that can help you to work through them. You may really need to get with a very good counselor and someone who can sit with you and help you to get back to those points in time that may have been the catalyst for this, the point of trauma for you, where these things have happened, so that you can get healing. And trust me, there is no shame in that game. All of these forms of development come in different stages and seasons of your life. There was a season of my life where I had therapy, and it actually put me on the path that I am now. Because the more I dug into myself to understand myself and discover myself, the more I started to recognize it in other people. And I wanted to help other people get the same revelations that I got. That's what I'm doing now. But I got it from going to therapy. And I have coaches, multiple coaches. I have friends who are coaches who coach me on different things. And you need those things. You need the accountability. You need the structure. And so it's good to help you to reframe, to have someone else. I have friends like who will just tell me about myself. And you need friends like that. Because otherwise you will stay stuck in your dysfunction, or you will stay stuck in an unhealthy perspective. You will stay stuck in a limiting belief. So very important to be able to overcome these emotional extremes. And finally, you want to reset and keep practicing these new behaviors of balance, emotional balance, of taking a step away, whatever your coping strategies are to deal with, and as you progressively heal, so that you create a new habit of emotional balance, so that you're not here, there, and everywhere, all over the place. All right. So how we doing? How we doing? Everybody okay? Y'all all right? I ain't lose nobody yet, eh? We all good? All right. So let's go to number 8, the last one of the night, y'all. Number 8, self-doubt. What do you believe about yourself? What do you think about yourself? And mirror work can be a very powerful tool to help you really uncover how you feel about yourself. Do you feel comfortable looking in the mirror? And in particular, looking in the mirror naked. I mean, this is like a real thing. Like, can you actually look at yourself. And then when you look at yourself, are you only looking for flaws? Are you only looking at what's wrong with what you see? And the thing about it is that what you think may be wrong, someone else may think is absolutely beautiful. The things that you have a hang up about, people are like, I don't even see that. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I remember doing a session some time back, and there was a young man who kept saying, I have a big head. I have a big head. I was saying, a big head? This guy, I don't even know what he's talking about. His head is like a normal head. And he kept saying it so much during the session. I just said to him, I said, did somebody tell you that you had a big head? And he said, yeah. That's all they used to tell me when I was small. So I said, there you go. Somebody told him that, and he took it on as a belief, a core belief. But it wasn't real. It was not real. So, what does self-doubt look like? And I just want to highlight 3 common examples. I don't know if you've ever heard of this concept, imposter syndrome. And what the imposter syndrome says, it prevents people from being visible, getting out there, going after their success, because they feel like what they're presenting and projecting to the public isn't who they really are. Like deep down inside, they feel like, well, I haven't really made it to that yet. I'm a fake. That's what imposter syndrome feels. So for some of you, you may want to get out there and start, creating a brand for yourself online. You may want to get out there and start speaking. You have a desire to be a speaker. You want to write a book. You want to perhaps get a promotion. But then you feel like, then you start looking at all your deficiencies, all of the things that you don't have. And you say, boy, if I get out there. And then, of course, social media and just our Bahamian society alone doesn't help. Because people can be so cruel. Trust me, if you have to have some thick skin to put yourself out there and to get yourself in front of an audience around here, Jack. Trust me, you have to have a lot of confidence and be prayed up and all sorts of things, because you're going to have some people who will love you to pieces, and you're going to have some people who are going to rip you to pieces. And they can talk about you from your hair to your toenails. And they will look you up and down. That's what we say in the bars. They look you up and down, head to toe, scope you all out. And I think that this is why a lot of people put so much emphasis on the externals in our societies. They put so much emphasis on having symbols of success. You have to have the big house. You have to have the fancy car. You have to dress the part. You have to have the right jewelry. You have to have the right shoes and the matching bag and the matching belt. You have to have the right friends. You have to be in the right circles. Because all of these things are supposed to validate you. And I think that, I don't know if I must be very rebellious, because I got to a point in my life where I didn't really care about those things, because first of all, I didn't have a lot of those things. So I'm not even going to pretend, and I'm not going to waste time trying to get things that I can't afford or that I can't, that I don't even want. And so why do all of that just to say that you fit in to the fake club? Because a lot of that stuff is fake anyway. So why not just be your authentic self, whoever that is? I remember when I had natural, but I always have natural hair. My hair is natural now. It's not processed. But I've always had, at whatever stage of length, this stage or natural not locked, and then locks. And I remember when I had locks, and this image consultant asked me, you know, are you going to keep those twist things in your hair? And I was like, well, first of all, they're not twist things. They're not twists, they're locks. And this is the style that I want to wear my hair. And yes, this is how I'm going to wear my hair. But in her mind, it didn't give me, I guess, that professional, polished look that I was supposed to have. I remember her even making an example of me. Never forgot it. This is some years ago when I was working in that executive position. And she pulled out 2 members of my team and me. And on that particular day, me and the manager, we were at, because we worked in a company that was business casual. We had resort services, so it wasn't dressed up all the time. So she had on, the manager in my department, she had on capris, and she had on a logo polo shirt from the company. And I had on a pair of long pants and a pair of the logo polo shirt. And the coordinator, the person who was actually lowest in rank to the both of us. So I was the director, the manager, and then the coordinator. She was actually wearing the office uniform that we had. So she had on the jacket and the button-down shirt and the skirt or whatever she had on. And she stood the 3 of us in the front of the room, in front of all the staff, because she was doing a grooming seminar. And she stood the 3 of us up in front of the class. And she said, which out of the 3 of these would you feel is competent and you would go to for help? And of course, everybody picked the young lady in the suit. And I was like, boy, and I understand the psychology of it. I understand the whole thing about image and first impressions and all of it. It does send messages and it does speak. But when we get so caught up in those things, that is what we end up living our fakery in. Because we could be all suited up, but have nothing going on here. Or have nothing going on here. We could be brilliant, but poor character. Or great character, but nothing going on here, but I'm well dressed. So, but we want to make sure that we don't allow the imposter syndrome to say, well, I don't have those outfits. I don't have this or that. So I can't go out there in the public and or just make myself visible in whatever circle that I need to be visible in. The next one is self-hatred and shame, which is a shame-based belief that I am a bad person. And so it's centered around shame because of something that must have happened, some sort of trauma or some sort of negative experience, abuse, or anything along those lines, where now you feel like you are a bad person. And so that only bad things can happen to you and you don't deserve good things. And this is why, again, we sabotage ourselves. Because we feel that, let me make sure that nothing good happens, because nothing good is going to happen anyway. So have you ever found people who talk negatively about themselves? It's almost as if they want to put themselves down because they want to do it before somebody else does it. And they may cloak it in a joke, but I think there's something else going on when people do that. And so self-hatred would make you feel like I just don't deserve happiness. And then when you think that way, you begin what they call that self-fulfilling prophecy. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. You have the creative ability to shape whatever outcome you want. And so when you start to think these things and say these things, you start to create these things. And then you wonder why your life is stuck, your life is negative, your life is this or that, because you created that world. You created that existence, believe it or not. Because deep down, this is what you believe about yourself. And the final thing is low self-esteem. And low self-esteem is, boy, I tell you, it's very sinister. Very sinister, because it's something that can be very unconscious and you're unaware that it's happening, but you feel like you are just not worthy, that you're not valuable, that you're not deserving. And so again, when you have these limiting beliefs, they begin to drive your behavior. And you start to act like a person that is not worthy. And this is particularly in the case for women. We do this a lot. This is why we settle for things that are below our standards and our deep desires, because we feel that we're not worth more. This is why studies have shown that women will not negotiate the salary that they want in comparison to a man, even if they are more qualified or as qualified. They will go into a negotiation, whether that's a job, whether that is as an entrepreneur or whatever, that we would go into that already feeling like I'm the loser. I'm the loser. I'm the victim. I'm the one that always has to apologize. I'm the one that always has to take the wrong. I'm the one that needs to sit small till my name called. That's what low self-esteem does. Low self-esteem will make you apologize when there's nothing to apologize for. Low self-esteem will make you ask permission all the time instead of taking action. And one of the things that I've observed, and I continue to say it over and over again, that as a nation, I believe that we are suffering from national low self-esteem. Because this is how we operate at the negotiating table. We give our country away. We act like it's not valuable, but yet the people that come see the value. We sell ourselves short. We take bribes and do all sorts of other things to sell ourselves short, to sell out. We don't make decisions that are best for everyone concerned. We make decisions that's best for a small group. We don't think about the greater good. We don't think with a mindset of abundance. We think from a mindset of poverty and scarcity. That, boy, I better hold on to this. I better grab this for me and mine, because there ain't enough. I could give me me. All of these things are very dysfunctional behaviors. And until we break these cycles, until we break these patterns on an individual level and on a corporate level, at a community level, we will continue to see the cycles and patterns of behavior for years and years and years and years. We see it passed down from generation to generation. Me not being able to communicate well wasn't something that happened because of life experiences. It was something that I grew up and modeled because of what I saw around me in my home. We pass things on, and because it's unconscious in many cases, we don't recognize that we even have something to work on. It isn't until we change, and this is why expanding your territory and getting around different people with different perspectives will shake you and disrupt these patterns. Because it isn't until you get around certain people who are evolved and who think in a different way, then you start to examine yourself, and you start to say, and you examine the people around you, and we start to say, well, okay, this may not be very normal. That's how I recognized that I was in an abusive relationship. When I was in it, I didn't think so. I thought that that was normal because I didn't know anything else. But it wasn't until I got around other people and I would see how other couples would act, or I would listen to their conversations of, people, my coworkers and stuff, just shooting the breeze and whatever. And I just started to connect the dots. And I just started to reevaluate it. I started to look at things differently. And when I went actually to do my master's program and we talked about those models of change, it hit me. That's why I think I got so passionate about it, because I realized I needed change in my personal life. I needed my desire for the new thing. I needed the desire for that different thing to be greater than the pain of where I was. I needed to be able to get out of the pain and not make that my normal, and move toward this vision that I had for myself and that I had for my life. And so it's very important that we dig in to these mindsets and beliefs, and we sit with ourselves and do the work. You will always hear me and other coaches will say that you have to do the work. You have to do the inner work. You have to figure out who you are, who you really are. And sometimes we're afraid. That's why some people just pick up and leave their life, And I don't talk about leave their wife. I said leave their life. People will pick up and leave their life. I remember watching the documentary for Nina Simone, because my mother told me that she named me after Nina Simone. And I started to connect those dots, because I was like, oh my gosh, I sing and I play piano and all that. I'm like, whoo, mommy was a little deep, And so I watched the documentary because I wanted to understand, like, why would my mom name me after her? Like, what was it about her and her life and her music and everything? And she was a very passionate woman. She was an advocate. She was in that civil rights movement. A lot of her music spoke to the pain of the times, in the 60s and the 70s and so forth. But Nina Simone picked up and left her life. She left her husband, she left her daughter in the States, and she moved to Africa, just up and gone. And we call it midlife crisis. We call it people being a deadbeat, whatever label we want to put on it. But I call it people being true to who they are, whether it's, morally right or not. I don't think, the method of just picking up and leaving and abandoning the people in your life is a healthy method of dealing with things, because you're not really facing all of your truth. You're just facing one dimension of your truth. And this is why some people just run away from the fakeness of the life that they've created. They realize that they're in a job that they hate. They're in a marriage that they hate. They've created this life that they feel they don't live up to. This is where you see people come out and they go full out into a life of homosexual or LGBTQ, because they've got tired of faking and pretending and living on the DL. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to give myself over to what I truly feel. And I feel authentic in this moment. I feel authentic in this state of being. I don't understand it or whatever it is, but this is who I feel I am. And I'm not going to pretend anymore. And sometimes we may not agree with the philosophy of what people do or why they do it. But at the end of the day, people are after their truth. We all are. We want to live a life of meaning. We want to live a life of significance. And we want to live a life that we can look in that mirror and say, I like what I see, even if it means that I have to lose it all. You know, I can talk here all these nights and talk about my pain, but it didn't make those experiences easy. It is never easy to walk away from relationships, to walk away from failure, to walk away from unmet expectations. It's not easy. I'm just glossing over it because that's not the topic of conversation tonight, but it's never easy. It's tough work. It feels like you're going to die in it. But at the end of the day, at the other side of it, there is healing and there's wholeness, there's truth, there's authenticity, there's joy. And yes, we will grieve what we have lost. And that too is healthy. But when we look at the price of what we stand to lose if we are not true to ourselves and we're not doing the work, that may be a greater price. And so our success strategy for self-doubt is simply believe in yourself. Believe in who you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I love to say, I saw it once somewhere, a meme or a post or something that says, I'm flawsome. Flawsome. F-L-A-W. How you spell it? F-L-A-W-E-S-O-M-E. Flawsome. I'm flawed and I'm awesome. I'm flawed and I'm awesome. And that's how it is. We have our sides that are, you know, our light sides, and we have our sides that's in the shadows, and we have to integrate all of those parts of ourselves. It makes us who we are. We just deal with those sides of ourselves that need the work. But we should also embrace and love the sides that are good. And some of us struggle with that, just being able to celebrate ourselves and say good things about ourselves, and to look in the mirror and say, wow, girl, you look good. You know, to be able to accept a compliment. I remember people would give me a compliment. I push it away. No, child. They say, if this is a nice outfit, this, child, I get this for $10. Why do we do that? Just accept it. Just say, thank you. I appreciate that. And keep it moving. So we have to believe in ourselves. Overcoming self-doubt, we need to recognize and acknowledge those patterns of self-doubt, self-hatred, and negative self-talk. Are we talking ourselves out of our own success? Are we telling ourselves that we can't do it? Are we telling ourselves that we're not good enough? That we are a fake, an imposter? That person that you're putting out there is not the real deal. So we need to recognize that when we do that, and we need to reframe those and disrupt that pattern of negative thoughts about yourself, and continue to practice positivity and dealing with those limiting beliefs until you've created that habit of self-love and self-worth. And trust me, this one is tough. This one takes time. And that's why I said at the very beginning that affirmations are not enough. Can you see that? You could tell yourself, I am beautiful, I'm smart, I'm creative, and all, I am wealthy, and I'm abundant, and all these different things. But if you have this thing of self-doubt, self-hatred, and all these other things, low self-esteem, under the surface, the affirmations will only take you so far. And you will continue to go to your default. You'll continue to regress. So where do we go from here? What's next? At the end of the day, what are you going to choose? This is your decision. It's your choice. Are you going to unleash your personal power? Are you going to amplify yourself? Are you going to be visible and vocal? Are you going to demonstrate your value in the market? Or are you going to stay stuck and frustrated and unhappy? I've really enjoyed doing this series with all of you this week. This has been a blessing to me. This has been a challenge to me personally as well. And there are aspects of this that I continue to work on. And so we have to make the best choices for ourselves. And sometimes that step to the right to happiness and joy and peace and fulfillment and passion may cause us a little bit of pain. But once we can work through the pain, we can get to where we need to get. We can achieve the things that we want to achieve in a sustainable way, in a lasting way, in a way where we could exhale and say, I reach. So I want to thank all of you for being a part of this, for joining every single night. For some of you, if you're just getting on with us for the first time, welcome. And thank you for being a part of it. And honestly, I didn't realize I had that going still. I really appreciate all of you being here and being a part of this. What happens next from here, if you have connected via subscription, by subscribing with your email, then I'll be in touch with what happens next. But I will be making a workbook available of all of these 8 things and all of the exercises with some additional things and resources and everything. I will be making that available after tonight. And so you can look out for those things. I'll continue to post on my page and to hold you accountable to these changes that you want to make. I will be starting again season 2 of Purpose Push. For those of you that have followed that webinar series that I started during lockdown in April, actually, and we ran all the way to July. And I took a break, but we are going to come back because we're going to end this quarter strong. And that is really why I started this series, to kind of prepare us. Because if we're going to talk about pushing forward in purpose, if we're going to talk about achieving these milestones for ourselves, we have to deal with these things that block us from fully being successful. So we're going to start season 2 under the theme 90 Days of Purpose. And we're going to carry through to the end of the year and into January so that we can anchor in these changes that we want to make going into the new year. I will also be releasing a devotional planner. The Purpose Push Planner will also be released, so that will help you to write and to craft the things that you need to do to push yourself forward. So in the 90 Days of Purpose, we're not going to be meeting every single week, but we will be having very specific webinars to deal with various aspects of purpose and creating your life map, helping to uncover some of these things, creating your strategy for moving forward, and to just anchor in the success that you want to achieve, the targets that you want to achieve in your life. I will also be doing in the Limitless You group, I will be doing some live sessions in there of question and answer and live coaching. So there's no cost to be in that group, just have to join and answer a few questions. But if you want to get to be a part of that group, where I will do some weekly live sessions within that group to, again, help people to work through certain things that they may want to work through. And so, again, I say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Stay connected. Share the series with people that you know would benefit from it, and do the work. Make the decision to choose you. Know that you are valuable enough and you are worth it to put in the work to uncover the real you, so that the world, whatever sphere of influence that may be, because we say the world, but all of us ain't called to the world. We got to shake a lot of these mentalities, right? That's a lot of what keeps us stuck too, because we feel that our purpose isn't grand enough. If I'm not on the big stage, then I'm not purposeful. That's not necessarily true. So even though I may say, you have to put out whatever you have to the world, your world is your sphere of influence, who you are called to, who you are called to serve. And that is what we want to share, because there are people waiting. There are people waiting for you. People are waiting for you. Trisha, I so appreciate you being here with us, and all of you. I see Nisha is here. Vanessa has been hanging all week. Renee has been here all week. And Miss Sherry, I see you. Shavane, I saw Shavane. Chanel, I've seen you. Telly, so many other people that I've seen passing through. And if I don't call your name, don't blame me. This platform actually only shows me certain comments at a time. And so when you see me put it on the screen, it's what it's actually showing me. So yes, Karanika, thank you for being here and for giving me my weekend treat. Karanika makes some amazing lemonade, y'all. Listen here, I'm hooked on that tropical lemonade that she makes. So I have to get my weekly supply. So y'all need to hit up Karanika and get some of that stuff. It is really, really good. Good to have you join us, John, as well. I appreciate it. Appreciate you coming through. Oh, and my name twin. Hey, Simone. Simone Kemp Ashley. I thought that I was the only person who had the name Simone spelled with 2 M's until I met Simone Ashley. And she lives in Atlanta. Like, we have absolutely no connection, but this name, I was like, I can't believe you have the same name spelled the same way as I do. And we connected ever since. We're name sisters. Life is awesome. So continue to enjoy your weekend and take some time to reflect. If you caught the video at the beginning, the person was sharing that, take an hour of a day to just spend with yourself, and whatever that best time of day is for you. Some people do that in the morning. Some people do it before bed. Whatever that time of day is for you, to really spend that time with yourself, do the work, invest in a journal, and just get cracking. And I will definitely share with you other things that I'm doing to help to support you as we move along toward the end of the year. Hey, Chef. Good to see you. Chef Charles. Good to see you all. All right, so have a good night, and we will see you at the 90 Days of Purpose. You will see the notifications coming out for that and all of the other good stuff, resources that I'll be sharing with you as we go along. All the best. Take care and be safe and well.